What's up, Bombshells? Welcome to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Kia, and I'm your host. Generally, podcasts request donations, but I want you to show love by simply subscribing to my social media platforms by visiting my website at www.bombshell1111podcast.com. I want to see thousands of subscribers on this platform. Leave your comments and I'll show love by shouting you out on my social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. I want to thank you for your continued support as always. And with that being said, let's jump into this new episode.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and I'm about to drop some bombs here on Bombshell 1111.
Welcome back, Bombshells, to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, your guide to mental wellness and personal growth. Join us as we unlock strategies for a healthier mind and a healthier life. Tonight, you guys, will be discussing toxic relationship recovery with our special guest, Samantha. So without further ado, let's get to it, Bombshells. Welcome, Samantha. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kia. Thank you for having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and deciding to be a part of the podcast. I am hyped about tonight's topic because I generally have a lot of mental health diagnosis specific topics, and this is kind of a bit different. So I'm excited to have you on for tonight, to talk about something that a lot of us sometimes deal with and hard to talk about, toxic relationships. So I'm glad to have you on here. So thank you again for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So let's go ahead and get right into it, Samantha. Down below in the description box, I will have your bio, a short description of who you are, where you're from, and what you do. But I like to have the audience hear it from you guys verbally. So can you just give us a short description of who you are, your expertise, what you do, how long you've been doing it?
Sure. So I am a radical self-care coach and also a toxic relationship recovery specialist. I am specifically concerned about helping women who have been in toxic relationships recover through radical self-care, because I think that's the only way that you're going to be able to get to the space and place of moving out of that nervous system wrecked space and get into a place of joy, a place getting out of burnout and getting into bliss.
So when you say moving out of specific relationships and things like that, how long have you been working in this field? Like, how long have you been doing this kind of work?
Wow. So I wrote my book in 2012. So it's been a minute, almost over 10 years. And so this has come from my own experience in my relationships and how I've processed it. And that's not to say that I'm a certified counselor or a social worker, but this is just literally from my experience and from doing my own research and the modalities I use to move out of that toxic relationship space and fully recover from those relationships that I had that really had me in a space where I lost my mind, like literally.
Okay, so let's jump deeper into this. So for people who may not be able to classify or identify with a toxic relationship, what is a toxic relationship?
A toxic relationship, in my definition, is any relationship that makes you feel less than, that makes you feel like you are an option, not the first choice. It's a relationship where you feel abused, gaslit, like you're being manipulated, where there's passive aggressive behavior, and that you can't be fully and authentically yourself. You're walking on eggshells and you're feeling like you can never do anything right. So that to me is what toxic relationships are all about.
And when you go through a toxic relationship and the recovery process afterwards, it's a long healing process that can take quite a bit of a time to heal from. Can you talk about the stages of grief after a toxic relationship? Because you do go through different stages. Can you
Yes.
talk about those stages?
Absolutely. So, just like losing a loved one, you literally lost not just the person, but you lost part of yourself. And you have to grieve that lost part of yourself, the lost time that you spent inside of this toxic relationship. So you're going to go through denial because, like, why this? I mean, this really couldn't have happened to me. I can't believe that. And then you go through bargaining, and trying to bargain your way out of the hurt feelings. You try to bargain your way back into the relationship if you haven't really completely let go. You then move into the other phases of grief. And I can't remember all of them right now, but and then it's not just moving through those phases in sequential order. You might go back, you might go forward, and then you finally get to the place of acceptance where this relationship is dead, and you finally get to the opportunity to resurrect yourself and come back to life by going through a whole self-rediscovery process and self-love process as well, which is done through what I think the best way to do it is through radical self-care and, of course, therapy.
And so, after or even while you're in a toxic relationship, there's a such thing as trauma bond. What is trauma bond after a toxic relationship?
Wow. Trauma bond is that state of being where you have such intense feelings and emotions for the person that you either are currently in a toxic relationship with, or you're now out of that relationship. And it's almost like an addiction that you have with that person where you're feeling like you can't live without them. You need to hear their voice. You need to feel their touch. You need to be connected with them in some way. And of course, sexually, you want to be connected with them. And so the trauma bond also may be involve a situation or circumstance that you two have created, that you only have with this person, that may be abusive. So whether you have this abusive situation or circumstance that happens, and then you go through the cycle of you being rewarded with flowers or you be rewarded with expensive gifts, and so you have this back and forth with that person. It could be a number of other different things. Some people even have the Stockholm syndrome complex, where you're inside of this relationship and you pretty much accepted that, well, this is just life, this is the way it is, and you have empathy and sympathy for that person because of this trauma bond. So it's a really deep and complex situation, and it really does you no good. There is really no growth in it. You really have lost your sense of identity, your self-identity, because you're identifying with this relationship more than you're identifying with yourself.
So, Samantha, what happens when you stay in a toxic relationship for too long?
Like I mentioned, you've lost yourself. You have no sense of personal safety. If you have children involved, you're really not concerned to the point where you're willing to leave for their safety. There's a sense of being trapped. You just pretty much give up on life. You don't thrive. You don't have joy. You are in this you're like a shell of a person. And that is like the worst situation and place to be. And it takes a lot to get a person out of that mindset, out of that space where they are no longer themselves. And oftentimes people don't really understand this. Sometimes people never really know who they are because they have maybe they grew up in an environment where it was abusive. There was a lot of trauma. And so they have been in such survival mode since childhood that being in a relationship that's traumatic or that's abusive or toxic, it feels normal to them.
So true. So true. So I know that there are many, many ways for an individual to be able to cope with an unhealthy relationship. But what are 4 ways that you experienced or that you would suggest for an individual to be able to cope with an unhealthy relationship, Samantha?
Now, when you say cope with it, are you meaning still remaining in it and coping, or
If
getting out of it and coping?
coping with it, if they have to remain in it, because my
Mm,
next follow-up question is coping with it after being in the
okay.
relationship. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
for
Just
both.
wanted clarity.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
So if you are in a relationship where and you feel you have to learn how to cope with it, then I suggest that you find ways to reconnect with yourself, find out who you are, go on a scavenger hunt to find yourself so that you can regain a sense of individuality, so you and learn interdependence, because when you become so dependent on another person for your approval, validation, love, even, then you are literally under that person's control. But if you start to find yourself again, then you can restart to regain control over your life, your decisions, your happiness, and become a healthier whole person. The other thing you can do is possibly learn emotional freedom technique. This is where you learn is tapping, emotional tapping on these acupressure centers in your body. Everyone has it. And so this can help to release some trauma. It can release some sense of worthlessness, low self-esteem, and it can just
Mhm.
really kind of get you in this place where you're feeling much better about yourself as a person and your situation. And then another thing you can do, of course, is try to find a therapist who you can talk to, or a close friend who can be objective with you, so that you at least have an outlet. And then start to establish some independence. So that may be your own bank account, that may be setting up, setting money aside so that you can start to move away from the person that you're in the relationship with, that you're with, when you're ready. That empowers you, and that makes you feel like you have some control over your life again.
And so for everyone, the healing process, the healing journey is a bit different depending on that specific circumstance. From
Mhm.
your expertise and from your own personal experience, how long does it take, or would you say it takes, to heal after a toxic relationship?
I think that depends on your level of acceptance or denial, because sometimes you may not even believe that you were actually in a toxic relationship, but then when the truth smacks you in the face, then it may take a long time, or I don't even say it will never really be a short period of time, but it could take a few years. It could take a dozen years. It just depends on your willingness to heal and your belief that you have the power to heal yourself with, of course, support, with certain healing modalities, and self-empowerment. Those are some of the things that you really have to embrace in order to accelerate the healing process. But if you've been in an abusive situation for years, from with that person, or even with multiple people, or even in your nuclear family, it would take a long time. For me personally, it took about 15 years. And that's with me on and off, inside and outside, getting in and out of toxic relationships, and then finally coming to myself and saying, this is not working. This is not the kind of life that I want. I want something different, and I want something better. And I'm deciding now that it's going to change, and I'm going to take those steps to start my healing process.
And when you say accelerate that healing process, let's jump right into something that you created to accelerate that healing process, which is your book, No More Crumbs. I'm sorry. I love the name of that book, No More Crumbs. None, because I'm not taking them. So let's talk about that. Let's tell us more
Sure.
about your book, and how can your book help someone that's recovering from a toxic relationship?
Sure, absolutely. So, No More Crumbs: How to Stop Dating and Mating for Crumbs and Get the Cake You Deserve in 10 Crucial Steps is my part memoir. So, it talks about my story and the 10 strategies that I lay out for people who want to accelerate the healing process, because it really boils down to self-love. That's the bottom line. Love is always the bottom line. And so in the book, I'm sharing the ways that you can re- re- recognize, reject, and release these toxic relationships that you're in. No matter if it's a romantic relationship, if it's a family relationship, a co-working relationship, whatever kind of relationship, but we're talking about intimate relationships. And so in the book, like I said, I talk about my own story, what I dealt with, and how I started my healing journey. And then I talk about the 10 things that you can do for yourself to start the recovery process. Now, this is not a magic wand. It's not a quick, like a get healed quick scheme. No, it takes time. And again, like we talked earlier, it depends on your willingness and belief to change the situation, to start the healing process, and the belief that you can actually do it for yourself as well.
And what type of book is this, Samantha? Is it an interactive book? Is it more so a read-along book? Can you tell us more about that? And then in addition to that, how can the listening audience get connected to you for your book? Is it located on Amazon? Where is this book located?
Okay, so it is a self-help book that has some interactivity in it. It has some journal prompts, it has mantras, it has affirmations that you can actually use. There is a companion course available with the book that you can tap into separately. The book is on Amazon, but you can also go to nomorecrumbsdating.com to learn more about the book and the course, and then also to get an autographed copy from me. So I think that's like the icing on the cake.
It is. It's the icing on the cake.
Yes.
So thank you for that. But before we end on your book, you also provide a lot of resources and things like that on your webpage. Can you please let the listening audience know how to get connected to you, or just to come and check your webpage out to get that information? How would they be able to get connected to you?
Sure. So you can go to the website, samanthagregory.com/links with an S at the end. And that just lists all the freebies that I have available. I do have a radical self-care starter kit, which I think is going to be very crucial if you're recovering from a toxic relationship. So you can just put your email address in there and click send, and you'll get that access immediately. And then you can go to my social media. I'm on YouTube at Samantha Gregory. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Just look for Samantha Gregory or Miss Samantha Gregory with an MS at the beginning. And so we can connect and we can talk. And I do, of course, offer coaching for toxic relationship recovery and for radical self-care, so that you can get in this space where you're able to transform your life from this place of burnout and chronic stress into bliss.
And so, Samantha, is there anything you feel that I missed that you'd like to share with the listening audience tonight?
Simply that you have the power within you to change the situation, but you have to be willing to do that. And you have to be in this place where you are loving life, or learning to love life, and reaching for what's possible for yourself.
Thank you so much, and I totally agree with that. But before we end out this episode for tonight, can you just one more time for the listening audience let them know where they can go and grab the copy of No More Crumbs?
You can go to Amazon. It is on Amazon. Just search No More Crumbs by Samantha Gregory, or you can go to nomorecrumbsdating.com and get your copy of your book there, and also learn more about the course.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, Samantha, for coming on and sharing your tools and your knowledge with the listening audience. I very, very much appreciate that. And I hope that you come back, as we promised, to talk about a different subject because you have so much knowledge, and I just really appreciate you coming on and want to be a part of this podcast. So again, thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. And so you guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Samantha for joining. We hope that you were able to hear something that was beneficial to you. And with that being said, thanks for listening. And always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. Until next time, good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell1111 or at Bombshell1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.